That ends our action agenda. And we'll move on to the discussion agenda. With the proposed revisions to the F board policies. Mr. McAllister, all right, thank you.
Yes, ma'am, we brought you the proposed, I think several of them we didn't feel like required any changes as we met and talked. I have submitted the proposed changes short of one that Mr. Turner, I think, is going to address for us.
Yes, in policy FEC, which is the selection of consultants in facilities construction, I've got a suggested change to the proposed policy, and that would be a change that would begin in the second paragraph, and and the change would be: the board believes it is appropriate and necessary to secure the services of professionals in the areas of facilities construction to manage and supervise the construction of new schools, additions, and renovations to existing schools. This helps ensure the district maintains adequate facility support and excellence in education. And I would propose that change in the language.
Mr. Turner, which page is that?
It's 7, I'm sorry, page 7.
Okay. All these letters, they start to run in together. And so you were talking about the second paragraph?
Yes, yes. What the recommended change does is it gives us perhaps a little bit more flexibility in deciding how we secure the assistance of outside consultants. It doesn't limit us. It gives us more opportunities to select professionals and not sort of box us into a particular type.
It removes the construction management term from our policy and opens us up for the new, whether it may be an architect on site, or it could be CM at risk, which is a new format that's being used and very popular. It just, what we did was pull the term management, construction management, to keep from someone saying we had to hire a construction management firm.
Okay.
And I can give this to Ms. Towers, and it could be in our first reading.
For the next meeting, when we do the first reading, that would be great. Okay, any other questions for Mr. McAllister on this section? Ms. Bumgarner.
On page 14, the names on flags, I stood over this a lot and talked with different people, and I think that I would like to add the language: members of the board serving at the time the construction project is approved, and sitting board members at the time of the dedication, because I think both sets and there'll be a little bit of overlap, but I think both groups should be named.
Can you repeat that again?
Yeah, members of the board serving at the time the construction project is approved, and sitting board members at the time of the dedication. So when you have a dedication, you don't have someone who is currently served on the board and elected. Their name not be included, because they will certainly be a part of the ongoing process.
Did you have any suggestions or recommendations on how that would be identified on the plaque, or that would just be, okay, we could just look at that later on?
I just, like I said, I've just looked at it, tried to look at it from different points of view, and really until about today, I was thinking that it should only be the current sitting board members. But I've talked with enough people to realize that the people who did approve, the approval time can be a jumping number.
Right.
We know from what we've had to deal with at Chapin High School, but at the same time, these are the people who, the board members who approved have, did make that commitment, so I wouldn't want to have a plaque not leave someone out, but at the same time, I think, a sitting board member, so why not? Expand the list instead of, it wouldn't be more than one or two people.
Okay. Any further comments? Mr. Turner?
I think it sort of begins to sound kind of selfish when we talk about this particular policy, because our name would be on a plaque or our name would not be on a plaque. And I guess depending on the role you played, but using that policy, I think just to use, and perhaps Chapin High School would be one, it's a renovation, that there might be a plaque somewhere in Chapin High School recognizing those renovations and new construction. But that will take place, the scheduled completion date is December 2014. And I'm just throwing this out for the for the topic of discussion, but in November of 2014, there'll be a new school board election. And technically, there'll be four positions up for, and you could have, you have 6 names, 7 names that are there, and then add 4 new ones to them, and now you've got a plaque that's got 10 or 11 names on it. And those 4 new people, you're still getting those who just are no longer serving as board members, and you're adding 4 who, it's just a timing thing. They just happen to just be elected. And again, it does get to seem sort of selfish to try to exclude somebody, but I think that this, when I saw this policy, I looked up naming plaques, and there's no one way to do this. There are, this policy doesn't address the superintendent's name, and I think that's typical. You put the architect's name, you put the construction manager's name, and those names either on that plaque or some other plaque. So I guess if we're going to redefine this policy, we might need to make sure we know who else, as far as administration, would be on there as well. But I think that not that those new people coming on board in a situation like that, right after an election, just the timing of that dedication, they're just their names being added to the names of those who really went through the process. So I don't want to. It's not that whether it's my name or somebody else's. It's not that that's what's important. I think that's. Are we doing this to, for what? I think there's circumstances where you could just be adding a lot of names and get this huge plaque that, those particular names had not really had much of an involvement in that project. But however you end up doing it, I want to make that, I just want to make that, however we do it, I want to make that comment.
Well, it seems, and your description, of course, is one scenario, which is I agree, odd. And then, of course, you have the other where the sitting board members who didn't approve it, but through blood, sweat, and tears, saw the construction of the project. It's almost, and I don't know if you can really do it, but it's almost a common sense type of policy of, the people who contribute, but that does away. I don't think we can use your common sense. So,
this is a discussion.
yes, it's very good that it's discussion, and I'm hoping that some greater minds can hear some of our concerns and
Get it on.
come up with some options.
Well, one thing that, since we'll have at least 2 more opportunities to look at this, one of the things that I think is worth considering is the role that those people who served on the board at the time the referendum was passed. I think they played a tremendous role, and had it not been for their approval to move forward with the referendum, these projects would not have been possible. However, they've been changed over the past 5 years. But so I think that perhaps, at least in those projects that are part of the referendum, that maybe some consideration be given temporarily to this policy that might recognize them, that we would have to go back in some buildings and add plaques. I don't know that we want to do that. But since we're talking about this policy, we might as well look at that as a possibility as well.
Some other thoughts? Maybe with technology, we would just have a plaque that you could just touch the screen and say, this is who was on the board. And utilize some technology about the different people who deserve thanks and gratitude. And I also appreciate the point that you talked about, superintendent and those in the administration who were very responsible in seeing this through. So I don't know if there is, I doubt there's a policy on that. Is there, anyone have an idea about who we put on there other than the superintendent? No. Well, everyone, it's a thorny issue.
It is.
Well, because I think what happens is we all would like to recognize the contributions of many different people. So, I don't know, let technology be our friend. Yes.
Someone told me, and I didn't look this up, but I think in a lot of big buildings, like some buildings at University of South Carolina, I mean, they've got like 25 or 30 names on them. You know, I think a lot of times, and I looked at it when we were going to bring this up. You know, very often you will see projects started, let's just say a battleship. It takes about 15 years to build one, so you could have one president authorize it and another president inaugurate it. Mm-hmm. Which one are you going to consider? You know, it doesn't matter. So that's what I've kind of looked at, and initially I thought it should be sitting board members just because it was marking time.
Right.
And you know, I've come back and I've talked to several different people, and I'm the only one that thinks that. So I've kind of gone back to say, well, maybe it should be both. So that's just my thoughts.
Well, as Mr. Gant made a point,
Very good point. Thankfully, it's just
discussion, so hopefully we'll have some great inspiration between now and our next.
I'd like to go back and amend that motion about the look-back thing on the bond so we can buy a sound system. That's what I want. Surely we can afford a better sound system. Glenn, you gotta help us.
Why is Mr. Bounds doing that?
Duct tape. 1930s sound system is.
We watch every penny in this school district.
We do.
Thank you, Mr. Bounds, for.
I think we got it. Everybody talks quietly.
Okay. All right, we will move on and from that particular policy. Anything else in the F board policies that anyone wants to mention or discuss? All right, we'll move on to number 16, which is the proposed revision to the 2014-2015 school calendar, and I suppose that's Mr. Bounds.